Jim Mullin, a Creve Coeur hockey product. This goaltender excelled after moving to Chesterfield after spending his first several years of life in Peoria, Illinois. While continuing to develop his career, he twice moved away to Indianapolis, where his game started to take off. He once made 70 saves at the USA Hockey National Tournament, which caught the attention of the opposing coach, who would then draft Mullin to the Dubuque Fighting Saints in the USHL. Mullin would go on to lead the USHL in save percentage, backstop Dubuque to a national title under the same head coach who he beat a year earlier. And his performance in the USHL led to several Division I offers from schools like North Dakota, Boston College, and the University of Denver, where he accepted an offer to become a Denver Pioneer. He'd earned NCAA East Regional MVP honors after losing to Boston University in overtime on a goal scored by future Stanley Cup champion and current New York Rangers GM Chris Drury. After a professional career across multiple leagues, Mullin would join Michigan State University as an assistant coach, where he worked with future NHL All-Star goaltender Ryan Miller, who would win the Hobey Baker Award in 2001 as the best player in college hockey. Now a husband and a father of two daughters, who would go on to play for the St. Louis AAA Blues, Mullin now resides in Minnesota. Please welcome goaltender Jim Mullin to the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame.
Wow, that is a tough act to follow. That was a great speech, very sincere. My daughter and I were actually at that Game 7. We flew in from Colorado. My daughter Mason and I, we came and watched that game, and we had great seats. And to see that and have her experience St. Louis and the St. Louis Blues was very special. It was awesome. Thank you for the kind introduction. Really appreciate that. Rupper, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody up here, and congratulations on the Hall of Fame. Rupper, I especially want to thank you because thank you for putting a picture of me in size 700 font, and somehow you took a chunk out of my tooth so I look like Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber. So thank you for doing that. I was born in Peoria, and my dad was a hockey guy. He played at RPI, and at our house in Peoria, he built a hockey room in the basement, and my brothers didn't push me through the cardboard walls like Pat was saying. It was made out of cement, and I was a goalie, and they made me be a goalie. Basically, when you go into the basement and they're like, all right, let's play some hockey, who's going to be goalie? You've got two older brothers that say, you are. We moved down to St. Louis when I was in 8th grade. And then I went to Parkway Central, went to Crestview, went to Lafayette, moved away from home my junior year, played for Team Indiana. My senior year, moved back home, played for Team Missouri, Parkway Central. And then went to Indianapolis, played Junior A, and then went to Dubuque, played Junior A, went to University of Denver after that, played in the minors for a little bit, couple stops along the way in Peoria, and then coached at Michigan State. So what I wanted to say tonight is I think most players go through 3 phases, right, in hockey. And that first phase is when you're a player, you're extracting from the game. And then the second phase is you're done playing and you look at the game and you have that pause, you start a career, you get married, and you look for what's next. And then that third phase, and I'm going to get into a couple stories here, but that third phase I think is the most important one, because that's where you start to realize that the game is not about the player, the game is about the game. And there's a lot of great things that happen with it. And there's a few things that happened that started to walk me down that path, and I'll share one of them here. I started coaching my daughters about 10 years ago. And at one of the practices is right before the holidays, and you get all the kids and they're circled around and the coach is talking, and you say, all right, here's what we're going to do. I know you're going to see some inquisitive relatives, you're going to have some great family meals, and we're going to have a little fun today. I'm going to teach you how to face wash somebody. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the nomenclature of hockey, face wash, I think I should get up here and have Pat talk about this a little bit, but the face wash is where, like, when the whistle blows and you see in front of the net, you see in front of the benches, you see maybe in the corner, where the player takes the most disgusting, sweatiest, leathery, borderline where like COVID-2 would start, glove, and you smear it in their face and you rub it, and it's not very fun during a game, but we had some fun with it. And about a week later, the kids come back, and we had one of the kids, I think his name is Bo, and I said, well, how was your break, everybody? And Bo he looked up and he raised his hand and he goes, I face washed my grandma. and like from there, like I thought about that, and then the next few days, I'm like, I love this coaching stuff. Like, this is amazing, And it just made me start to reflect at a different stage in my life in that phase 3 of what's really important about this game, and it was time for me to start giving back to the game. I had extracted enough. There's actually this happened just a couple weeks ago, but one way that I kind of had it I incentivized some of the players is I created a currency called gym bucks. And when they did something well, right, made a good pass, made a nice play, I'd tell them I'd give them 20 gym bucks here, 20 gym bucks there. And it actually worked. Like, they would do the things and you'd say, great, you get 20 gym bucks. And so over time, they're like, they don't really realize, I'd always get like, what's a gym buck worth? And I'm like, you'll see. Well, I let it play out. But just actually last week, we had some friends from Colorado move up to Minneapolis, and one of the sons, his name's Jackson. We were in the kitchen, and Tracy, his dad, he had said they just moved up there, made some small talk, catching up a little bit, and at the end of all that, Jackson, he hadn't said anything the whole time, and this is, we're talking like 7 years later, 8 years later. He looks at me and he goes, "Where are my gym bucks?" And I'm like, we might have a problem here. And so then I paused for a second and I say, "Jackson, come here. Let's go sit down at the kitchen table." And I looked at him and I said, "Has anybody taught you about inflation?" I said, "There are a lot of gym bucks floating out there, and they're not worth very much. I'm sorry to tell you." Quick shout out here to Jim Montgomery too, because living in Colorado, being part of the Denver Alum Association, they do everything first class, right? And that the same group of kids 10 years ago-ish, anytime that we wanted to go see a game, anytime we wanted to go see the locker room, I'd text Jim and he'd send me, one of the strong arm emojis and one of the fist bump emojis. He's like, "I'll make it happen." And the smile on those kids' faces and what he did for those kids, really, I'll never forget it. Those kids will never forget it, but it's a side of, I think, maybe a coach of the St. Louis Blues that maybe you don't know or haven't heard, but he's got an enormous heart, and he made things like that happen all the time. I appreciate that very much. One other important story for me is with George Gwazecki. George was my coach for 3 years at Denver, and George was an amazing human being, a great X's and O's coach, but an ambassador of the game, and the things that he brought, the people that he brought along, how he cared about his players. I can't say enough great things about him, and he's very impactful in my life. And one thing that led to this epiphany for me in looking at hockey and maybe getting towards that phase 3 and really looking at giving back to the game was, again, about 10 years ago, in northern Colorado. We lived close to a rink called Northern NCYH, and we were a couple blocks away. And George had 19 seasons at DU, 2 national championships, Hall of Fame person, Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame Colorado, University of Denver Hall of Fame, you name it. World-class human being. And he had just gotten back from 2-3 years, I think, in Tampa Bay as an assistant coach in the NHL in Tampa. And I'd heard he was coaching Valor, and I said to myself, like, wow, George is, he's on the tail end of his career, but he could go coach anywhere he wants, and he's coaching Valor, high school hockey in Colorado. And I'm like, okay, like, what's going on? So I'll go catch up with them. So I walked down the rink. Valor was playing at the rink that was a couple blocks away. I walk there, sit down with George, we catch up, and in the hallway, we're getting ready to say goodbye, give him a hug, and he's walking out, and at this rink, you've got all these glass doors in front. George Gwazecki walks out the front doors, all the glass, and he gets on a yellow school bus. And to me, and I thought about that, I'm like, this is about the game of hockey. Like, George wants to coach and be around young, impressionable kids. And there he was, still teaching me, long after I had graduated from Denver, about what this game is about. And I really appreciate that. And that phase 3, again, is the most important part of the realization of giving back to the game. I want to use this platform to say thank you, because there's a lot of coaches along the way that I think that I really appreciate it. That I appreciate them. In Peoria, we had Mike Olson, Jim Brophy, Guillermo Ortiz. Then we moved down to St. Louis, and John Murray, Scott Rupp, Rick Schooley. We had dinner with Rick and Linda last night, and it was a great dinner. Of course, when you come, we live in Minneapolis, you come down to St. Louis. I think we went to have Italian on the Hill, and then we went to Ted Drew's. I haven't hit Lion's Choice yet, but those are the 3 staples. But Rick and Linda, thank you. That was a great dinner last night. Thank you for always advocating for me here in St. Louis. Very important. I remember in some of the national camps, Rick would come and communicate with me. He's like, yeah, you did real well at the camp. Here's how you do. Here's what you need to improve on. Didn't really teach me that much about being a goalie, except for maybe a skate save, which I've never used in my life. But great person. Thanks for your positivity. One other actually thing that I thought about, my daughter and I went fishing about a month ago in Montana. We were fly fishing, and then we on the Missouri River. And then we went to Glacier National Park. And so it was a perfect environment for me to really think through about what I wanted to say and kind of the main points I wanted to make. And one of the things I was thinking about is, of course, all the coaches and the main theme of what I wanted to talk about tonight. But there was also a few things that popped in my head. And with Rick Schooley and Rupper and John Murray, like, I look back at my days, and my dad. So my dad, unbelievably supportive, and I'll get to my family at the end, but unbelievably supportive, and he was an amazing hockey person. He played college hockey at RPI, but he also smoked a lot. Smoked like 2-3 packs a day. And so in my head, I'm thinking, in this day and age, you've got kids that you're shuffling around to hockey, you're making long road trips. I couldn't imagine smoking in a car, let alone with the windows up. And I'm thinking, Rupper, Coach Schooley, I mean, I felt like I was getting out of the car like Jeff Spicoli on Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and they're like, I think this kid's got a problem. He's smoking darts before practice in 8th grade, right? And I promise, wherever Rupper is, like, it was not me. That was my dad, and hotel rooms were even worse. And then a couple others here. So in 8th grade, I know that Blake Dunlop and Bruce Affleck were also part of the St. Louis Blues alumni, and setting the expectation. They coached us at the Pee Wee tournament in Quebec, and that was a great memory. One of the best memories of me playing hockey in St. Louis, and thank you very much for that, because I'll tell you what, setting the bar high, setting the expectations, introducing the young players to the competition and the areas they need to play, of where they can be the best they can be, that comes from the St. Louis Blues, right? You guys know what framework these kids need to grow under, and you want to, and you have provided and set the bar high enough to where, however far you want to go, you can do it here in St. Louis. Lou Struckman, Ken Whitrout, Ken was the coach at Parkway Central, and the little fun fact there is, I was a senior and Aaron Vicker was a freshman, and I think it's pretty cool in St. Louis real early that you had 2 Division I goalies come out of Parkway Central. That's a good fun fact. Mark Tabern was my coach in Indianapolis, and then Kerry Eads was my coach in Dubuque. And Kerry Eads was a St. Louis player after they won the national championship at North Dakota, and I think it was '82. Kerry was I think part of the Blues, and then ended up going to Salt Lake. But Kerry Eads, he's one of the coaches who is a warrior, and every person on our team in Dubuque would run through a wall for that guy. And it's no surprise that we won the national championship that year. We had a get-together a handful of years ago in Dubuque. And again, you get back to the whole teammates thing, and it's definitely not the Stanley Cup, but you still have that camaraderie with your teammates. You pick up where you left off. You haven't talked to some of these guys in 20 or 25 years. And it's very, very special, and Kerry means a lot to me, as does Guaz, notable impacts. Frank Serratori, of course, Guaz. And then I was at Michigan State for a couple of years and had the benefit, and Coach Ryan Miller for a couple of years. And I say coach kind of in quotes a little bit, because when I showed up to Michigan State and I stepped on the ice with Ryan for a couple of years, or a couple of days, I left probably the third day and I said, I'm not teaching this kid anything. He's unbelievable. I've never seen a goalie like this. And then I rewrote my responsibilities and said that my job is to just not mess him up, because he was that good. It's been, living in Colorado for a little bit was great, because it was a little fortuitous, because you had Denver in their string of national championships, and I know you've got some Blues players that went to Denver, and it's awesome to see you guys here in St. Louis and be part of the Blues and listen to some of the stories of the Stanley Cup. And being around the string of national championships they've had in the last 10 years, and Monty had one, and then, of course, in the last 3 out of the last 5 years, my two girls play hockey, and they got to see and be up close. And Dave Carl and Jim Montgomery and Guaz were unbelievable to alumni, and to have your family just be that much closer to seeing, being up close to what it takes to excel, to win national championships. Very grateful for that. The St. Louis connectivity didn't stop after I stopped playing. My 2 daughters got to play for the St. Louis girls program in a couple different tournaments for a couple months, and there were some great people associated with the St. Louis Blues. I'll point out here real quick: Greg Long, Gwen Bushing, Aaron Vicker, Connor Chatham. They made us feel at home, from the correspondence to being included to off-ice stuff. You made it very special, and thank you, because the things behind the scenes that go on often go underappreciated. In this third phase, I recognize it, I love it, thank you so much. And then, getting back to some of the hockey lingo and the nomenclature, let's talk a little bit about teammates, because it corresponds to my family. And when you talk about what a good teammate is, and you try and be a good teammate, you teach your kids to be good teammates. My life teammates are my family, and what they have done for me, and the love that they've shown me. Mason and Avery, Kristen, Ruth, Johnny, Steph, Paul, they're all here tonight. I can't begin to tell you what the foundation of what they bring to this, what they bring to hockey, what they bring to me is eternal. I'm eternally grateful. I would not be where I am today. I met Kristen, my wife, after hockey, and she's literally the nicest person I've ever met. And I could stand up here and talk to you how lucky I am, but she brings out and encourages me to be the best version of myself. And in many ways, she's seen that in when I was coaching our girls, when I have coached other teams. And I can't say enough. I really can't. Over the last 30, 40 years, right, on the outside looking into St. Louis, I think about the time when I started to mature as a hockey player, and this was 30, 35 years ago. St. Louis was a very good hockey town, and then you watch it be a great hockey town, and now you have it an elite hockey town. And it was interesting, because you have some of the people that don't believe you, and a lot of the things said tonight resonate. And you go to the USA camps, or you go to whatever area of the country, or whatever tryout, and I remember going to some of these national camps, and you scroll down the list and you look at where all the players are from, and it's like MN, 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 MA, MA, MI, 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 MN, MN, MO, and they're like, MO? What the hell? This was back when I was playing. I'm like, yeah, MO, we're from St. Louis. And it's not the case now, and it's awesome to see here in St. Louis, because just this just this year, 4 gold medals by men's and women's from kids from St. Louis. That's unbelievable. And then 5 first-round draft picks in the NHL in 2016, hundreds of Division I, Division III players, local hero with 3 Stanley Cups. I mean, these seeds have been planted for the last 34 years, and the most important people in the room tonight are the coaches, the supporters of the programs, the family members that support the people that played along the way. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank St. Louis enough. It's been an amazing honor to stand up here. Thank you.